Miller and her husband had trouble conceiving naturally when they tried to create a family, and Miller now acknowledges that she yearned to have a child of her own while she watched her friends become mothers. She began to pray, but as it didn't work out for her, she grew frustrated. Miller looked to her faith to help her get through that trying period. Then one evening, the pair received some unexpected ideas. In the film Martian Child, played by John Cusack, a little kid who thinks he is from Mars is adopted by Miller and her husband. Actually, Miller's husband was the one who advised they move forward with an adoption straight away. They made contact with a company and made deposits into their bank account to cover the initial charge. And in just a few weeks, the organization had located an expectant mother who intended to place her kid for adoption. Then, at an Olive Garden, Miller and the biological mother of her unborn baby met and spoke for a couple of hours. A week later, Courtney and Nick Miller welcomed a son called Ely into their family. His mother wanted to offer her son a greater chance at success than she could, because her family wasn't together at the time of the birth of any of her children. She suffered her greatest loss for me to receive my greatest delight, Miller continued. From the moment they met, it was obvious that the new mother adored her kid. She might not have realized at the moment, though, that her journey toward adoption had just begun. In reality, Ely received a baby sibling soon before his 4th birthday, and it was he who chose Oliver, also known as Ollie, as the moniker for the skateboarding move. One day before Ely's birthday, Miller brought the newborn home from the hospital. Since Ollie was born, Miller has continued to communicate with his birth mother. An open adoption is one in which the birth parent continues to be updated on the child's progress. However, Ely spent many years without ever meeting his biological mother. Additionally, the Millers were contacted by the adoption agency they had used to find their son 12 months after Ely was born. They were informed that the mother wanted the brothers to remain together because she was expecting another boy. She boarded a plane for Utah to meet with the Millers about perhaps adopting one of her other children. Miller hoped that the adoption agency would concur that raising the brothers jointly was in everyone's best interests. However, she asserts that the business was unwilling to talk about a payment arrangement or any kind of reduction. Miller claims that instead, when the family made it plain that they couldn't afford the high charges directly this time, the adoption agency shut off communication. The mother of two claims that the adoption agency also suggested to Ely's birth mother that the adoptive parents were not interested in adopting any additional children. As a result, they were unable to bring Ely's sibling home, despite everyone's pleas. Miller had given him to another family, according to the last report they had. They never received the letters or photos she wanted from the agency. As a result, Ely didn't know his biological mother as he grew up, and the Millers were unable to get in touch with her. Miller further asserts that the agency in question ultimately lost its certification and ran into other legal problems. She also asserts that the company owner was jailed on a number of counts of financial malfeasance. The family ultimately came to the decision to explore an alternative adoption method if they wanted to have another kid. The second time, Miller and her husband decided to go the private route and take on the emotional and financial obligations. Miller later acknowledged, though, that there were red flags everywhere during the subsequent procedure. However, it appears that the pair missed the warning signs until it was too late. The mother of two subsequently admitted that in addition to the emotional pain of attempting and failing to adopt a daughter, they also experienced financial hardship as a result. But when they welcomed Ollie into the world, everything ended up working out for the family. Although it's obvious that passing up the opportunity to adopt a daughter and Ely's sibling had an impact. Miller admitted to her Instagram followers in March 2019 that if things with Ely's brother had gone well, she and her husband likely wouldn't have chosen to adopt Ollie. Even though the couple eventually had the two kids they had long wished for, their tale was far from ended, because a sudden event that occurred when Ely was 10 impacted their lives forever. One evening, Miller received a message on social media. She was astonished to learn that it was from Ely's birth mother, who had located the Millers despite having little knowledge of them. The Millers immediately replied to her letter, and the three of them worked together to piece everything together. Miller and her husband also realized that it was time for Ely to meet the woman who gave birth to him during their talk, so they made plans for her to come see them. Ely's original mother finally got to see her son in November 2018 after giving him up for adoption 10 years prior, and it was immediately clear that they were connected. Then both Ely's birth mother and his adoptive mother started crying and hugging each other. Miller claimed that even though the adoption had happened 11 years prior, she had never forgotten the love and bravery and pain that Ely's birth mother had to go through in order to give him up. The whole family shared a beautiful moment, and it just got more emotional from there. That's because Ely's birth mother informed the Millers that the family who had adopted his brother, whom they had attempted to adopt years earlier but failed to do so, lives less than an hour away from the Millers. Additionally, during her stay, Ely's birth mother arranged a meeting between the two brothers. Miller noticed that Ely and Perry, his younger biological brother, connected right away when they first met in a motel. Miller felt as though Perry had always been a part of her life, which was bittersweet for her. After that, Ely and Perry went swimming together and shared several swimming techniques. The brothers learned they had a lot in common when they conversed as well. By the end of the day, they were already stealing one another's belongings and fighting to the ground, according to Miller. Their bond was fast. The mother wondered how different things would have been if she had been able to adopt Perry all those years ago, as she and her son were driving home after the brothers had first met. The family experienced emotion at that time. However, Miller believed that everything had turned out for the best in the end. The experience was therapeutic for Miller and her husband, and it enabled them to move over the disappointment of their first unsuccessful adoption. And they were aware that for Ely and Perry, this was just the beginning. In fact, Miller was very clear that she wanted the brothers to continue to be a part of each other's lives. Ely and Perry might be able to get together frequently since they just lived 3/4 of an hour apart. Miller also wanted them to develop a much deeper relationship. Ely and the Millers also posed for a picture with Perry and his adoptive family as well as the boy's birth mother before they said their goodbyes. Miller expressed a definite desire for the experience to have the same therapeutic effects for her son's biological mother as it had for them. Miller made the decision to pursue her passion for children as a job, despite the fact that her earlier experiences had left her feeling somewhat jaded. She consequently obtained employment with an adoption agency. Miller shared on social media that she has accepted a job with a Guardian Angel Adoptions, a business founded by 3 good friends who have all adopted children. Miller disclosed that she will write blog pieces and social media updates for the company. The mother of 2 will also provide guidance to anyone going through the adoption process via a helpline. She claims that she collaborated with a Guardian Angel Adoptions in order to support other mothers. Miller battled for 10 years with the highs and lows of adoption. But now that Miller has met Ely's mother and brother, it seems that Miller and her family have found some measure of peace. On Love What Matters, Miller penned the sentence, "Their narrative began with brokenness, anguish, and tears." However, there was also so much love weaved right alongside it, Miller remarked. There was selflessness, pleasure, laughing, hope, and appreciation. She understands that having an open adoption has its challenges, but she wants her kids to feel secure in knowing where they come from. And she says that it was her religion that got her through the hardest times. Miller now wishes Ely and Perry would realize how fortunate they are. And she is aware that their experiences will have a lasting impact on how they conduct their lives, just as they have on hers.